In this lesson, we'll continue building our walkie-talkie, and we'll be drawing the curves that are going to make up our front control panel. So you've been working along with me. Continue working on your file, or if you're just starting on this chapter, you can go into Sample Files, Chapter 6, and open up 06 Walkie-talkie Start. So we have our model as it exists at the moment. We have our main walkie-talkie body, and if I zoom in here, you'll see the volume knob and the antenna details we've added. We also have the volume knob and the antenna. Let me go ahead and switch those 3 layers off, and I'll switch on the underlay layer. And I'm working in shaded view at the moment. I hit Control-Alt-S, and you see we have our underlay. So we're going to be specifically drawing this kind of control section here. I've zoomed in so I can see most of the body, and I'll go ahead over to my Layers command. I'll switch on my curve layers. And now I have my main center line here, which is going to be very helpful for what we're doing. But I don't want to have all the other curves going on, so what I'll do is just select that particular curve, and I'll come over and on my default layer, I'm going to right click, and I'm going to click on Copy Objects to Layer. Doesn't look all that different, but now if I go over to Curves and switch that layer off, now we're left with this center line in here. And that's going to be very helpful for working, because this is truly a real sketch. So what you're going to see is that the right and left sides don't necessarily match up. There's going to be some differences based on the fact that it's a real sketch, a hand-drawn sketch. So we have to kind of decide which is the nicer side to work on, and we'll build all of one side and then mirror everything over. And I think I'm going to kind of work on this side here. So I'll go over to my ellipse from center. I'll click on that. And I want to start using my center line here. I got to be very careful. If you notice, as I bring my cursor in, I'm actually snapping to my picture frame. I have to be sure that my cursor is using the end point of this center line for reference and not the midpoint of the picture frame. So now that it's using that end point, I can bring my cursor up here. What I want to do is click so that I'm about where I think the center of this ellipse is. So I'll come up here, click about there for the center. I'll hold down my Shift key and drag out this way, and that's going to give me my width of my ellipse. I'll click and then bring that cursor down until it looks pretty good right about there, I think. So now I have that. I'm actually going to draw all 3 of these circles here. So I'll just use the center circle here. I get a snap from my quad, and this first one I'm going to eyeball just a little bit, and I may end up moving it around. So I'm just going to draw something that looks about right. And you notice we're not exactly on center, and this sometimes happens when you have a sketch. Select that. I'm going to hold down Alt and use my down arrow key, and that's the nudge command, and I'll get that into about the right location. Now, definitely notice left to right, we're not centered, and again, that has to do with the fact that this is a sketch. So we're going to ignore the fact that we're a little bit off visually on the sketch, and we're just going to use our center line that we know is centered, and we've been building everything based on that center line. So now that I have that circle, I'll draw another circle, make sure that my center snap is on. And now if I just hover my cursor near that existing circle, you see I get a center snap. I'll bring the cursor out and snap there, and I'll hit spacebar to reapply the circle command. And again, put my cursor near the circle I just drew, or I can put it near one that existed before, and just click, and now I know they all have exactly the same center. So all of these are drawn concentric to one another. Now if we notice in here, we have a little bit of a blend between these 2 edges. And notice that it's a little different on the left side. I think I prefer how this one looks. So we're going to go ahead and replicate that. So what I need to do is a couple of things. First, as I mentioned, we're going to work on one side. So I'm going to take these 2 shapes, and I'm going to split them using this center line. Notice my command line says 2 curves split into 4 pieces. So then I can just take this side, and delete it. And then what I'll also do is use my trim command on these where they overlap. And I just want to kind of clean that up visually so I can work a little bit easier. So we need to blend this open curve into this one. There's a few different ways to do it. In this particular instance, I want some control over it, and I may want one side to have a little more tangency or curvature. So I may want one edge of this to have a little more tangency than another. So I'm going to use my blend curve command. And there are actually 2 different blend curve commands. Let me show you those. So under curve tools, There's adjustable curve blend, and then there's blend curves. If you right click on this and do a blend curve, it's just going to automatically put a blend in there for you. If I left click on this, then I get an adjustable curve blend, and that's the one I probably use about 95% of the time, just because I like to have a little more control over this. So I'm just going to left click on this icon. We could also find that under curve, select blend curves, and we would choose adjustable blend curve. And we follow our command lines, select curve to blend, select that one and that one. And notice right away it throws what it thinks is a very nice kind of a curve in there. And then I can adjust this from that point. Sometimes you'll find you may need to switch your center snap off while you're working on this, because the center snap is a very powerful object snap. And when we're dealing with the blend curve, we tend to be dealing a lot with circles that are going to have some sort of a radius, or curves that will have some sort of a radius to them. So it does want to tend to snap to those different center points. When I'm working with curve blends, just to switch the center snap off. So as I said, what's nice about this is we can go in and I can pull the points a little bit more. I want to have a blend take place over a longer time, and I can also have one end change over another one, and they can change individually or have more or less blend. If I want to have the same amount of blend, if I just read my command line, it's telling me I can press Shift for symmetry. So if I hold down Shift and click these, notice it kind of jumped, and what it's doing is it's moving both of these control points the same amount. So we'll get a symmetrical blend. And that's not exactly what I want for this shape. And I can change where the end point of these are as well, which is kind of nice. So if I want to have a little tighter of a radius here, I can bring either one of these in or both of them in if I want to work at it that way. Kind of push and pull these points until I get the look in that curvature that I want. Might want to zoom out just a little bit to see what's going on. And notice we are deviating from our sketch a little bit. Our sketch comes in here and then changes over to here. But I think this is going to give us a much nicer blend. So I'm pretty happy with how that looks. And what I'll do is I'm going to click on Trim and Join. So what that'll do is combine these curves and trim away any excess when I hit OK on this. Click OK and see how that cleaned that up all nicely for me. And we'll continue drawing all of our detailed face curves in the next lesson.